What's up, creepers and seekers? Chris, the Atari Creep. How's everyone doing today? Let's have a look at the Amiga Power Stick joystick that you can use with your anything that's compatible with the Atari 2600, to be perfectly honest with you, in that you're not going to really see this thing in function. We're just going to look at it and talk about it. I did use it live on Instagram this past Sunday. If you want to check out that video, I'll try to remember to link it down below, so you can hear my live reaction to using this for the first time. There were some things that worked extremely well for, other things that didn't work well at all for, not even a little bit, and we will get to that. So I suppose the first thing we should talk about is, of course, its unique size. I've been calling this thing the noisy cricket. You remember that weapon from MIB? Something about the joystick itself reminds me of the barrel or whatever. But here it is next to an official Atari 2600 joystick. And you can see that it is considerably small, more so when I give you a profile of this thing. I would say it's about a quarter of the size of the original Atari 2600 joystick. That being said, a guy with big fat sausage mitts like me, it's surprisingly comfortable. I didn't feel too much fatigue playing it, with the exception of my fingers gripping this little joystick. You can see there's already a dent there. And if you're mashing down on a maze-style game like Pac-Man, it's going to get to your fingers. But overall, it's comfortable. It just seems to cradle in the hand just right. And the buttons just seem to be right where they need to be. So you're not actually mashing buttons. You're more so doing a squeezing motion, which I found was actually pretty interesting and worked out fairly well. I mean, sometimes I did move my finger and traditionally hit the button, but other times I just held it like this and I squeezed. And it was nice. It leaves plenty of room for the joystick to move around. The buttons themselves, however, leave a little bit to be desired, especially if you're more used to, or you prefer something with feedback, some kind of a tactile feel. These are leaf springs, meaning they're pieces of metal that have kind of a spring to them, that when you press the button, it forces them to touch another piece of metal to create the contact, and then it'll spring back. That's the theory anyway. That's true all around inside this joystick, both the buttons and, of course, the joystick itself. The first thing I gotta say is there's a lot of play in the joystick as far as it just being a loose thing, so to speak. And maybe play in the joystick is not the right word, because the throw itself is very short. That I absolutely love. That is fantastic for certain kinds of games. But again, you don't have any kind of feedback as to what's going on here. And that lends to a few issues here and there. Not to mention, there's nothing inside giving you any indication on definite up, down, left, and right. It's kind of a guessing game, almost like the disc on the Intellivision controller. But for some games, it just seems to work extremely well. In other games, it seems that it's just crap for. So going back to talking about playing the games themselves, last Sunday, like I mentioned earlier, I went live. I used an Atari 7800, and we played two 7800 games and three 2600 games. We played Ms. Pac-Man and Donkey Kong for the Atari 7800, and then we played the 2600 ports of Thunderground, Galaxian, and then last minute we did Frogger, because I was curious as to how it would work with Frogger. Playing it with Ms. Pac-Man, this thing was an absolute delight. But I think more so because when you're playing a maze game that's like a Pac-Man style, you're trapped in the maze. So there's really you do need that precise up, down, left, and right, but you can't hit angles by accident and screw the gameplay. You're either going to miss your turn and just have to adjust to it, or you get your turn no problem. So when it came to playing Ms. Pac-Man on the 7800, yeah, I honestly think that once you got used to it, this could improve your score. Now on Donkey Kong, I was having trouble playing Donkey Kong. I don't know if it was that port, and I was even questioning whether or not I had even ever played the 7800 port of Donkey Kong before in my life. I don't recall if I have or haven't, but I was having a hard time, and I wasn't sure if that version of Donkey Kong was just hard like the Atari 8-bit computer one, or if this controller was just making it unnecessarily hard. So I did have quite a hard time playing that. Galaxian, That's a tough one. Going left and right only on this can be tough on some games. Galaxian has a weird thing in the controls I found out there. If you're not doing exactly left or exactly right, you're not going to move. And you're going to get dead. And sometimes you can throw at an angle completely by accident with this, and you'll never even know it until, of course, it messes you up within your game. Thunderground, I started seeing that more prevalent, but it was more so in Frogger. I was curious as to how this thing would work on Frogger, because you do have all 8 directions that you can use on a controller as far as direction in which you can go in Frogger. This thing had a hard time with Frogger, a real hard time. I'm usually very good at Frogger. Maze-style games, not so much, though I still enjoy them, and I think this will help me improve my score on Pac-Man-style games. Frogger, on the other hand, this was an absolute nightmare to use. And again, it's because you don't really have any indication as to what you're truly throwing on the joystick. So you could try to go left, but you might be jamming up to the, the angle there. So in between up and left. And then that'll throw you into the pond. And I did do an experiment where I sat on that middle platform before you get to the pond. And I just literally just went left, 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 right, right, right. And inevitably, even though I was paying attention to what I was doing, I jumped into the water by mistake. And that's all because there's no feedback or indication on this controller. And it's real easy to hit that angle. Now, just a couple more things before I give you my final thoughts overall. I did use it with an Atari 7800. The joystick, like I said earlier, is compatible with anything that's also compatible with the Atari 2600, so long as it takes a 9-pin. And it's wired pretty much the same exact way. I did plug it into a 7800 and it works just fine with 7800 games. But keep in mind that these 2 buttons here do the exact same thing as this. So this is not compatible with 2-button 7800 games, only the single button. But it did work no problem with my Atari 7800, which leads me to believe it'll work just fine with my Atari computer. Of course, it will work with the Atari 2600 and anything that is compatible. Last little thought before my actual closing thoughts is, so I saw this knurling here and I was like, wow, I wonder what that knurling is for. Let's see if I can't get an angle there. You can kind of see it there. I thought maybe you could get an attachment to slide down on top of it. And then I noticed the joystick spins, and it spins pretty freely. There's really not too much resistance, so I wasn't sure if maybe there was a paddle in there. Maybe this was a dual-purpose joystick. And I'm looking at the back thinking, okay, there's a big bubble back here. At first I thought it was just aesthetic, but maybe there's a pot attached to this, and that's why that's round. So as I'm doing this on normal function, the pot has somewhere to go without being destroyed, whatever. So I plugged in my copy of Kaboom, and you know what? It absolutely did nothing. No, this is not a spinner knob, nor is it a paddle controller. I just thought that'd be interesting to tell you so you can have a little laugh at my expense. I guess that's all I'm being thorough in these reviews. So overall, what did I think of the joystick? For some games, like I said earlier, it's absolutely amazing. For other games, it's dog shit. I think it would just be up to your abilities and how you work muscle memory with your controllers and how you are with specific games to begin with. Do I recommend this being in your arsenal? If it's your only controller, absolutely not. No. Do I recommend you having it for specific games just to have an extra controller or maybe just a conversation piece in your collection? Yeah, absolutely. This is a fantastic, fun little controller that it snuck up on me. I saw this in the box. I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but this was part of a donation from Arcade USA, Mr. Willie over there. And he has similar style hands to me. So I was wondering if maybe he just passed it along because he just didn't like using this small thing. But turns out just the opposite. He enjoys this controller quite a bit. And he mentioned that when I made comment on it on his website, or when I did the unboxing that he had sent me last week. So overall, I like it. And if you do want to hear my in the moment reactions, by all means, click on that link. Hopefully I'll put it down below, or I'll put it at the end of this video on the right hand side of your screen. It's a live stream replay, and I literally had used it for the first time on each one of those games and you get an idea how I felt about it in the moment. So guys, go ahead and leave your thoughts down below. Do you have one of these? Do you have the one for the ColecoVision? That one looks really cool. Picture this, but with a number pad right here that looks just like the ColecoVision one. But it's up at an angle, and when you hold it sideways, it looks like a lady's shoe. But either way, go ahead and leave feedback. Thumbs up, thumbs down. All feedback to the Creep is positive. Guys, I hope you're having an amazing weekend. I hope your holiday season's going well. For once, mine's on track, and I'm not stressing at all so far. Maybe I should have, kept my fucking mouth shut. But either way, guys, thank you always so much for watching. I really do appreciate it so much. You guys have no idea. And the feedback's amazing. The feedback, and I mean it when I say thumbs up, thumbs down. All feedback to the Creep is positive. It's about that interaction, It's about that interaction. So guys, until next time, take care. Creep it real. And bye-bye.